Hello, everyone. This is Coach John Roberts, University of South Carolina head coach, bringing you the Ruckin Roosters Show. And today we are flipping the proverbial switch. We're just flipping it up because I'm going to be the one that's doing the interview. And then Phil, who is over here to my right, is going to be answering the questions, and I'm just so delighted to be here. And it took a great amount of confidence, I know, Phil, for you to even turn over the mic, just thinking that I just think ruin this whole Ruckin Rooster Show that you've been working to build up over the past year.
No. You're going to do a fantastic job. This is a odd role reversal for sure, so it feels a little awkward. But I have a full confidence that you're gonna steer the ship and avoid the rocks for sure here at Coach Roberts. You're going to do a great job.
I hope that I'm worthy of your high confidence, my friend. Now, the reason we're doing this is because just a very short time ago, there was a big event in USA Rugby history. The MLRB, the Major League Rugby, had its version of the Super Bowl.
That's exactly right.
And the team that won it was the New England Free Jacks. And Phil's going to tell you about what he does with the New England Free Jacks. You guys that know Phil know that he is intimately involved in the club. He runs a podcast for him. He knows the players, the organization. He travels around. And so when all that was happening, when it was coming down in Chicago, about, 10 days ago, 2 weeks? I was watching it.
It's a blur at this point. So it would have been 2 weeks this coming Saturday. So, Yeah,
2 weeks ago, the Gamecock, one of our Gamecocks is right down there in the mix, enjoying it and celebrating with the boys. And he posted some pictures of him drinking out of the big cup. And it was a solid and interesting game. It was a barn burner, came down to 1 point at the end, and it was just wildly entertaining. But before we get into that, before Phil tells us a story about his experience and probably share some photos drinking from the cup, we're going to talk to Phil a little bit about his origin story, because he's always likes to ask us about what's our rugby origin story. So this is a great opportunity, Phil, for you to share your rugby origin story with everyone. So please tell us how it all got started, my friend.
It's interesting. We've talked about defining moments, little moments in our lives on this show previously. And I remember yours very specifically at the Horseshoe, talking to one of your rugby brothers at Carolina, and he basically convinced you to come see what rugby was all about. And that changed your life forever. For me, I don't have as much of a dramatic story, but I was just kind of piddling around on the internet one day, and I either found it on eBay or found rugby, like looking up the laws, and then eventually bought a rugby ball and was like, I don't know what this is. I'm going to learn about it. So it happened in one of the two of those ways. But essentially, I bought a rugby ball on eBay and, pumped it up and started passing it around amongst my friends. And we didn't know what rugby was. I grew up in a rural, North Carolina town outside of Charlotte, with 9,000 people. And people were just like, what is this guy doing with a rugby ball? What is rugby? So I learned the laws as best I could from the internet, like learned the positions. And we basically started an intramural team at my high school, at Kings Mountain High School outside of Charlotte. And that went for, let's say, a couple of months, and people were having fun. We didn't really know what we were doing. We were just having fun. And from there, my interest really got stronger, where other people's dwindled. And I decided, before I was even graduated, I was 17 years old, I joined the Charlotte Rugby Football Club, which is one of the biggest, clubs in the South, very historic and prestigious club. And I showed up, and a couple of our other guys that, were interested in it showed up as 17-year-olds, and some of us maybe even younger than that, at these guys that were beyond college. Some of them played at a very, very high level in other countries and were recruited to come to Charlotte and play and, get jobs in the Charlotte area. And they're like looking at these kids like, who are these kids showing up wanting to play with us, where they didn't have any rugby experience other than just playing intramural by themselves and not really understanding the rules. So I played for an entire season with Charlotte's B-side team before going on to college, and I transferred to Carolina. My family has a long historic, history with the University of South Carolina. My grandfather's uncle is actually in the Hall of Fame at Carolina for playing football. My grandmother's brother played football and baseball there. So I was always, growing up, supported the Gamecocks to a certain extent. But I transferred in. I played at Catawba College for 2 seasons, and it was a kind of a ragtag bunch of guys. We barely had enough, squad members to even play a game. Sometimes we would show up to, let's say UNC Charlotte and have 12 guys, and they would have to, loan us players for the game. And of course, they weren't very good. So we would always get our butt kicked every single game. But I always loved it. And, when I transferred into Carolina, I played in 2006 with Carolina. I had some really, really fun times, met some really, really awesome people, and got focused on other things. I actually became my fraternity's president, so I got busy with that sort of stuff and internships. But I think of those times very, very fondly. Obviously, I'm a proud Gamecock. Will always support Carolina rugby as far as I can go. But I wanted to share some photos with you here. This is the old squad right here, and you can see Mason in the far back there in the corner with a white T-shirt on. Coach.
Yeah, that's Jeff Mason. He was your coach, an Australian guy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And down at the very, very far front.
That's an ugly fellow right there.
Looks like Braveheart, right there.
Yeah.
There's me. And I got a better. There's me right there. A young Phil Harris. Look at that.
Man, you look pretty intimidating. You look much more intimidating then than now.
Absolutely, 100% agree with that. And yeah, let me just jump back here. There we go. Okay, yep. So that is the origin story of me playing rugby, learning how to play rugby, and then playing rugby at Carolina. So, again, a proud Gamecock, and really, really happy to continue helping the program along any way I can.
You spoke about just sort of walking on with the Charlotte team.
Yep.
And the way they embrace you. And that's one of the things I love about our sport.
Yes.
It has a great sense of community and a brotherhood. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people say that. A lot of people say, hey, man, it's really cool. But, it's if I walk around town or I'm on vacation and I have on a rugby shirt, some other guy who plays rugby is going to come up to me and say, hey,
right,
you play rugby? Do you coach rugby? Where did you play rugby?
Yep.
If I'm wearing a golf shirt, no one's going to walk up to me and say, hey, you play golf? I play golf too.
Yeah.
Hey, are you playing tennis? I play tennis too. Let's talk, So it's good. And that's something I think that it's a common thread that's woven throughout our sport that makes it so special. Now, you mentioned that you remain connected with Carolina.
Yes.
And that you love the Gamecocks and you have a family history with the Gamecocks. Mm-hmm. And you do this podcast, the Ruckin Roosters Show, but you also do something that's very important for us. Yes. So tell us a little bit about your volunteer work with the organization.
So I am on the board at the moment, the Carolina Rugby Board, and I am the vice chair. So, anytime Robert Balmer's not available, I will step up and lead the meetings and stuff like that. So, but I also do, of course, the Ruckin Roosters Show, which we try to profile stories of, alumni, current players, and just all of that sort of stuff. So I try to do as much as possible, with all of my available free time that I have. So, there's not a lot going on, in my life. I don't have kids, Caitlin and I, we just have a cat that runs around. So there's a lot of free time, and I want to kind of devote my life to a certain extent to rugby and advancing the sport within this country. And one way to do that is to help out, of course, at the collegiate level at my university that I love so much. And then, of course, with the Free Jacks and helping out in that aspect as well. So happy to do the Ruckin Rooster Show.
Man, I tell you, and I know that to be successful, to recruit players, to engage audiences, to excite alumni. I mean, you have to have content,
Yep.
And back when I was growing up, that content was, let's try to get in a newspaper. But now everybody has their platforms.
Right.
And so these shows, the Ruckin Rooster shows, the stuff we put on Instagram, just has a ginormous impact on how we're able to project ourselves, how we're able to build our brand. So thank you, for everything you're doing. And Phil does a fantastic job about this. So enough of that background stuff. So tell us what it was like, man. I mean, you're there. Tell us what you do with the Free Jacks, just very briefly about your podcast.
Sure. So I do a podcast called the Jacks Rangers Show. It was started in April of 2021. And I reached out to the club and we formed a loose affiliation with the club. Basically, what we do is we try to drive engagement, fan engagement specifically on social media and also through our YouTube page and our podcast. So we have episodes. We're up to 86 episodes or 87 episodes. Frequently comes on. We're going to have the general manager on tonight at 9 p.m. as a matter of fact. Not only that, but we have players. We have access to all the players. We reach out to them to have them come onto the show. We right before the final that took place, less than 2 weeks ago, we had the captain of the team, Mitch Jacobson, come onto the show and talk about his feelings and what went on in practice that week. So really, we're just trying to drive engagement. If we find people that are looking for more content for the Free Jacks and they stumble upon the show and they get more involved, then we have done our job at the Jacks Rangers Show. That's what it's all about.
Well, fantastic. So you not only run the podcast, but you're interviewing the players, you're interviewing the GM. You were involved kind of like in the day-to-day stuff with the club. So you know all these guys.
Yes.
Right? So this is like a big thing. So we're now to the point, man. I mean, you're going into playoffs. Yep. You guys are like – you finished the season with 14-2. So you won your division. And it just looks like, just in the research that I did, that you guys in San Diego look like you guys were on like a collision course. Is that the way you saw it?
Yeah, man. It was a clash of the Titans for sure. And San Diego are a very, very good team. Their back line, probably the best in the league. I mean, they've got a legend, an All Blacks legend, over 100 caps for New Zealand. And they don't just give those away like hats on the street. Ma'ananu plays for them. So it was just really a clash of the Titans. It was not a David and Goliath story. Both teams deserve to be there. Both teams were number one seeds in their respective conferences. And it was just a amazing final in Chicago. For people just tuning in, it was on Big Fox, by the way. So millions of people could have, saw it take place. It was an amazing final. It came down to 1 point. It was a 1 point victory. It was very back and forth. There was no blowouts involved. It was something that, held people at the edge of their seat, at the game, and also hopefully that we're watching home on TV as well.
Yeah, the score was like 24-23, 25-24.
There you go. Yep.
Right? And I remember the last little bit. I mean, there were about 3 minutes left to go.
Yep.
And then there was some scrumming that was happening. I think it was the Free Jacks scrum down there.
Yes.
And I was thinking, oh, okay, well, there's enough time for the Free Jacks. If they get it out to the back line, they make an error. There's enough time for San Diego to do something, to turn a trick, to turn a miracle, and come back and win. But it lasted forever. Tell everybody what happened at the end.
Man, it was just unreal. So Ma'ananu, like I said, a living legend in the rugby world, accidentally, knocks the ball on, of course. And then the Free Jacks had to scrum down. It was reset multiple times, and it kind of chewed up the clock a little bit. But, I mean, San Diego were in an attacking position. I mean, we were at our 22 or maybe a little bit beyond that. So if they were able to steal the ball from the scrum, perhaps, they could have made something happen and maybe done a desperate drop goal, or maybe we commit a penalty and they get to kick it through the uprights. So it was absolute madhouse at there in Chicago. So, I mean, I think all of us were kind of holding our breaths for a very, very long period of time. But once that ball got out to the back, and our fly half, Jason Potras, who's been so good for us all year, the leading scorer in MLR, by the way, for points, kicks it out of bounds. And then there's just absolute jubilation for all of the Free Jacks fans. We call them Rangers, all the Free Jacks fans, that traveled so far and have been following this team for so long to get that first win in the championship. It felt so good, John. And I'm reliving it in my mind right now because of course I love my Gamecocks, but this Free Jacks team, I know all of those guys, and they're just great people. And I'm so happy for them, and of course, happy for the fans. It's really, really special.
So tell us about the origins of Jack Ranger, the Jack Ranger Show.
Yeah.
So you call them all the Rangers. I mean, there's got to be some kind of cool story behind that.
Sure. So I was trying to figure out what I wanted to call the podcast, and literally my first sticky note, my first ideas, I wrote down Jack's Rangers. And for whatever reason, I just never went away from that. And really what it comes down to is, of course, that area here in New England, I'm in New Hampshire right now. This is a very, very rich historical place for the Revolutionary War, right? A lot of stuff took place here that if maybe it didn't happen, we would all be speaking in more of a British accent right now. But so they play homage to that. The imagery of the Free Jacks is very much Revolutionary War. So there was a unit within New Hampshire in the Continental Army line called Whitscomb's Rangers, and they were just a ragtag bunch of guys, like pioneer types that would do skirmishes and do a lot of recon and stuff like that. So I paid homage to them with the name Jack's Rangers. That's where it comes from. It sounds like a supporters group, but we're much more of a podcast type feel. So that's where the name comes from. And like I said, I just really want for people to be as engaged as possible and get as much content from us as possible to keep them, engaged and wanting to watch the Free Jacks. That's really the whole point of the show.
What was your major when you were at Carolina?
I was a political science major.
There you go. Political science. You're bringing history.
Yep.
Love that stuff. I mean, I'm a big student of U.S. history and Revolutionary War and the Civil War. Some people down here still call it the War for Southern Independence or the War of Northern Aggression. I don't want to say anymore. I don't want to get any trouble, but
I've heard that a time or two.
I really like it. But I'm glad you brought that reference up. So you guys win the game. So I want you to tell me a little bit if you have any photos to share, like what it was like hanging out with the boys.
Yep.
I saw some photos of you drinking out of the championship cup. I suppose your mind's all clear now and you're fully functional, but you probably had a good party time, didn't you?
It was a really nice couple of days. I mean, now it wasn't good for my health per se. It might have knocked a year or two off my life, but it was totally worth it. So I wanted to bring up some photos right here. I will say, but prior to the final, the Free Jacks had their award ceremony where they, bestowed all these awards onto players that did excellent throughout the season and stuff like that. And unbeknownst to me, the CEO, Alexander McElby, who is a USA Rugby legend, got up there and talked quite a bit. And he started reading off some of the surveys that I did when the team was first announced, like specifically my responses and stuff like that. So I had tears, coming down my eye, down my cheek there, just remembering the excitement that I had with the team forming. And he called me up there and I got this 2023 Community Impact Award that's got the Free Jacks and MLR logo on there. So this is really, really special. I'm going to hold on to this for a very, very, very long time. This is going to go right here in my little studio right there. So that was a really proud moment for me, for the team to acknowledge, my contributions of what's been going on here. But I wanted to show up. We've already done that one. So, okay. So here's Alexander McElby and myself.
I think I recognize that guy.
Look at this. Look at this. It's denim on denim on denim. It's actually quadruple denim, John, because I'm wearing a denim t-shirt, denim business coat, denim slacks, and also denim shoes. Believe it or not, they were denim shoes that you can't see, but I'm also, so we had a blast that night. It was really about just celebrating the Free Jacks' excellent year. And then I wasn't aware that they were going to give me that award. So that was just a nice little gesture by the club. So that was really, I love this picture, by the way. And then here's some of my guys that help out with the contributions of the show here. That's Dan from Merrimack on the right, and that's Bozo 6, as we call him, on the left there. Two of my closest confidants and really, really help out with the show. Top contributors, so they're fantastic. And then right here is actually in the parking lot of the MLR final there in Chicago. We got some Free Jacks fans, some Seattle fans that also just made the trip because it was a neutral venue, John. So Chicago, middle of the country. So all the fans, MLR fans, or just rugby fans in general from all over the place kind of converged, similar to like a Super Bowl situation. It was almost like a convention of all of like the super fans and stuff like that. We had an absolute blast. It was such good fun here. And here's Caitlin and I at the tailgate, my better half for sure. She's such a great support for me during the season because, there's a lot of work that goes into this. I mean, I don't even want to count how many hours that goes into all the stuff that we do with the show here, but I got some more pictures. There's me with the a winner's medal, and we'll go over that in a moment, but I got myself a winner's medal from one of the players. There's me sleeping with the winner's medal on. Some other fantastic Rangers here. We got Spider in the middle, who just is the living embodiment of a New England guy with the tricorn hat. And one of our early contributors, Ted, right there, black on the left. There's Caitlin and I with the Eastern Conference Championship Cup there. I was drinking out of that a couple of hours later. And yeah, there's the shield. So that's the major trophy in MLR. Me and Caitlin holding that. So, and there's me. So the Free Jacks rented a party bus, John,
Yeah.
to go on this like a pub crawl. So they invited us onto the party bus there, and I was holding the shield for quite a long
man, you look
time.
like you're probably a few beers into that party bus.
Yeah, and also just drunk with excitement of being able to hold the shield for a long period of time. Got to be honest. So yeah, there's me and Connor Keys. I like to call him my son. He's a second Roman, Canadian international. Came up from Atlanta. Down there at Rugby ATL to win a championship with the Free Jacks. Great guy. Here's me and the head coach, Scott Matthey. They call him the giant killer down there in South Africa, in his home nation. He took a club with not as many resources as others, and we're beating them. And then came over here in the past 2 seasons, has the best winning percentage in Major League Rugby. An absolute genius. Great guy, too. Here's me and Taveta Soul. What an excellent, excellent prop he is. Going to become USA eligible pretty soon. He's got that residency on the way. So look for him to be in a red, white, and blue jersey on the Eagles side of things pretty soon here. And here's me and TK, who's going to be on the show at 9:00 p.m. Eastern time tonight. What an amazing guy, really understands what we're trying to do with the Jacks Ranger show and expanding this whole thing and moving it forward. He's just a great servant to the club and just a great servant to the game of rugby. Great, great man. Here's me and Alexander Magleby again, my best buddy, the CEO of the Free Jacks. There's some local rugby guys, Mystic guys, the head coach of Mystic, and also one of their spirit animals, Buzzy. And here's Cam DeVittle. It's a local legend. Came through the ranks at Plymouth State, your old foes there at Furman, and has made his way, through the development squad at the Free Jacks, and all the way to basically either starting or coming off the bench. He's a great, great local talent. He lives in Haverhill, Massachusetts. His family are farmers there. Great, great story. Here's me and maybe the best rugby commentator in the entire war, Dallin Stanford. South African turned American, used to play for USA Rugby Sevens and also Maccabee Rugby. Great, great guy. Love him. And there's me and Taveta again, once again, with our winner's medal. So yeah, that's and final one here, winner's medal with me and Dan from Merrimack, one of the contributors of the show. So just a very, very proud time. I just have so much gratitude with this organization. I'm just so proud of them for doing what they've done. And here's the winner's medal once again. I wore this, John, when they put it around my neck. I wore it for 7 days straight. I only took it off to shower. So I pretty much retired it, but I just wanted to throw this on here for this particular interview.
Well, man, I tell you what, it speaks to your passion, for your game. It's as someone who's older than you, that's kind of lived through, had some successes. You can't have those successes every year, but you always look back, and when you're older, and you're going to treasure those moments. And, it was really cool that I noticed when you were showing me those photos is that you get an opportunity to work with the players and the podcast and know everybody. But man, when it's game time, you're a fan. You're out there tailgating, you're meeting everybody.
Heck yeah, man.
That's pretty cool, to be able to just kind of, we don't have a whole lot of hair, but, if we did, we could let our hair down during this contest. Really kind of enjoyed it. It looks like you just had a fantastic time.
I try to, man. I try to get stuck into the middle of it. A lot of the times I'm looking at what's happening on the pitch with arms crossed, like, man, we could be doing this better and this better, even if we're winning the game. Like, I have that coach's approach to it almost. But when you win a championship and you think back on everything that took place throughout the year, all those little moments that came together, like, you can't not be just joyous and overloaded with gratitude for these players and this organization. It's just so good. I'm so happy for them. And we're finally on the board. New England finally gets their first championship, and I'm so happy to have a very, very small part of that. It's pretty cool.
It's great. And you're part of the history, because what you're doing is you're chronicling it along the way,
right.
And people can always look back on that. So, before we get out of here, we're going to have a little word association game.
Oh, no.
Turn the tables on you. Okay.
Love it.
All right. Now, I'm not as polished at this as you are, so we're going to have a little fun with it.
All right.
So you have to answer in just 1 or 2 words.
All right. Okay. I'll try one word. Yeah, let's do it.
Favorite Free Jack player?
Andrew Quattrin. That's 2 words, but love that guy. He's the one that gave me the winner's medal. He came up to me and with it in his hand and put it around my neck and said, feel you deserve this for all of your hard work. And I cried. I sobbed. I was just so happy and full of gratitude in that moment that he did that for me. My favorite player. What a great pickup that he's been. Came over from the Toronto Arrows this year, and he's been immense. What else you got?
Best Free Jack player.
Ooh, Jason Patras.
Put you on the spot, man.
Jason Patras. So he replaced the legend Bodine Walker, who had a MLR season last year. The MLR, the MVP of the entire league last year at Bodine Walker. Jason Patras comes in as a calming presence, and in the process, scores the most points in all of MLR. So he did a fantastic job.
The team's record next year.
Ooh, let's do one better. We'll say we'll lose one game.
Oh,
that's it. Just one. Yeah. So we lost 2 this year. We'll lose 1 next year.
So you're an optimist. I know this about you.
Big time, man. Yeah, this team. I mean, we got our coach coming back for a 3rd year. I mean, who's going to stop us? Nobody.
Great. Gamecock Rugby.
The best. What more can you say? We are an up-and-coming program. We're going to take the country by storm. We're already turning heads right now with what you've done and the team has done so far. So we're just going to keep going up, and away, off the charts.
Man, we're running up on 26 minutes, and I told you we're going to keep this to 15. But, we had so much fun with those photos and everything. We ran over. So we're going to end the Ruckin Roosters Show the way we normally do it. Yep. And we're going to end it with just 2 words, and we're going to say it together on 3, 2, 1. Spurs up, baby.
Woo! Thank you, Coach. Appreciate you.